It would take all of us to come together to support the research. Research to discover more effective treatments for the 1 in 285 children in the U.S. who will be diagnosed with cancer. What would it take to make hope bigger than heartbreak? Go to childrenscancer.org to find out. Children's Cancer Research Fund is a national nonprofit dedicated to ending childhood cancer. We understand the complexity of the landscape and know how your support will have the strongest impact. Go to childrenscancer.org today. That's childrenscancer.org. Together, we can do this.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
Ty, it is time for you to get your usher on today in the Fast Lane. Statute of limitations is expired. Brad Bradley is not listening. Perhaps he actually is, whether that's live, VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM, or maybe in podcast form. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook Live, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Were there ever moments in your career as a Heritage High School football player, or for Virginia Union since you went to college there? Maybe you are going to go that route because it's less likely that your coaching staff and former players are QQ, by the way. Isn't that what you guys do in Omega Psi-Phi? Isn't that y'all's thing?
Yes.
I am not an Omega Psi-Phi. I'm a Pi Kappa Alpha, so different fraternity, but mad respect for you guys. I know plenty of you great people, think very highly of you. But were there ever moments at Heritage or at Virginia Union where it could have been a loss in a game, could have been a loss in a scrimmage, could have been a point in the game where the coaching staff let the underperformance percolate just to send a message of what is going wrong, and then let that be the opportunity for you to self-correct?
Yes and no, but mostly yes. Depends on the situation, of the game, but it still help us learn like during the game and stuff.
So there were certain moments then, as a former football player in our own backyard at Heritage High School and here in the Commonwealth at Virginia Union, where the coaching staff may have known something was going wrong, but it's not immediately interjecting. They want you, being the great leader that you are, Ty Tracy, or your other teammates, to interject, identify, and to self-correct, or maybe even learn what the consequences.
Yeah, definitely, because it's just like you have to, if you want to be a student in the game, you got to figure out what's the rights and wrong, what's going on during the game when everything's going fast-paced and stuff.
So the reason I asked that here in the Fast Lane is because Liberty softball's at an interesting point. I know I'm going to upset some people on the mountain, but let's call a spade a spade. They're in the Texas A&M regional. They were probably going to be on the road, but going to the number 1 overall seed, you could debate whether Oklahoma should be the betting favorite. I have not looked at the odds recently to know who is. So again, getting my usher on in the Fast Lane. I can't quite comment on the betting side of things, but Texas A&M clearly number 1 overall seed means they've had a great year. The way they performed in the Conference USA softball tournament, they get a win, then they lose the next game, and then they have to fight their way through a victory against Louisiana Tech. Liberty was probably going to the postseason anyway. Higher seed now, they're a 2 seed. They might have been a 3 seed somewhere else, but may have been a favorable draw. You can never really play the hypothetical game for Liberty. They had a strong non-conference slate. You'd have to think they would have made the tournament in some form or fashion. But for the Lady Flames softball team, I kind of get the impression that Dr. Dot Richardson was going to let them work through this on their own, knowing that whatever happened in the Conference USA tournament, they were probably going to the NCAAs, and the bigger picture goal is learning how to work through that to get you ready for, it's not technically do or die because it's double elimination in the regionals and the super regionals for softball and baseball, unlike lacrosse, soccer, all those sports, which are single elimination. But you're in a more heightened situation. So going through the, hey, we've got to figure this out ourselves, can often pay dividends down the road. And Dr. Dot Richardson seems like she's taken a page out of many a great coach's playbook, but for your sake, Ty, we'll go with Brad Bradley. I don't know who your Virginia Union coaches were, but I know who Brad Bradley is at Heritage High School, and he's not shy of voicing his opinion. I think I'm okay to say that. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, he's never shy.
Never is, and I think he'd agree with us. But sometimes you let the team figure things out, knowing that you've got other games down the road, which truly are the more, pardon the expression here, but do or die scenarios, and that's where you've got to actually figure this thing out.
That's true. And it's like you always say, you got to take one game at a time.
Well, and those are the other parts to this for Liberty softball. And, a lot of it's just rechanneling the basics. Like, the basics are not just like in any sport, the fundamentals of playing, but some of it's just the fundamentals of just sports in general, which is when things aren't going well, can you lock in and focus? Can you compete? I'm not the best at running. There are plenty of people out there faster than I am, as you found out in the Freedom 4.24 5K, and you'll find out again when you join us for the Memorial Day 10K run and 2-mile walk for type 1 diabetes, hence on Memorial Day, among other races that we run. But, I've learned some days you don't always have the best focus, and you really have to fight at that. Some days you have it, but you got to find a way to learn to work through that as a competitor. I'm learning that in tennis. I'm not quite there, but there's some basic things I'm working on to try to improve in that sport as well. And a lot of that goes back to the idea of focus may not be easy, but it goes back to the focus on just competing as an athlete. And Dr. Dodd Richardson said that earlier today when she met with the media before they leave tomorrow for Texas A&M, that part of the experience from Conference USA, not just winning the tournament in softball, but losing early to Jacksonville State, fighting for a win against Louisiana Tech later on that Friday, and then getting some revenge on the Gamecocks of Jacksonville State in the championship game, 8-0. It was the basic root of sports, which is, as we like to say, our guy Michael Lombardi, North Carolina football GM and friend of ours in the fast lane, you're going to compete or retreat.
Anyone watching it realizes we needed it, right? We open up, we win, then we come back and we're just there. You can't play by just being there. You got to want to compete. You've got to wake up and be the best that you can be when your best is required.
You have to. You have to focus in on that. And this is the spot where you learn it. And Liberty's still probably in a one-bid league, although how strong their softball season was, there was a real potential they could get an extra bid if Liberty did not win the Conference USA softball tournament. And similarly, I'll put it, Liberty baseball's in that category. They're going to have the right mindset to compete in the Conference USA baseball tournament next week if they want to go and get a victories that can get them to the NCAAs. But it's getting yourself in the right mindset, because you need that to start off this regional against Texas A&M. Okay, everyone knows it's the College Station regional. You're probably going to have to go through the number one team, Texas A&M. But if you're the Liberty Lady Flames, you got to have the right level of focus, because a lot of these girls have played before in postseason play, and they've gotten to the point where, like last year, they were literally an out away from winning the Athens Regional and going to the Super Regionals and busting that proverbial glass ceiling. Had chances a couple of years ago against UCLA, among other spots as well. So they've been in this spot before, but it's you get the right level of focus on, because it helps you prepare for what it takes, which is, cliche as it sounds, one game at a time, but it starts with Marist for Liberty. That's the first team they play, and you need that. You need to get on the right side of the draw so you're not playing in these double elimination games. Now in softball, it's a little easier because you have one pitcher versus multiple pitchers. You can kind of ride the right arm or the hot arm for a good chunk of these games. But for Liberty, this is the right spot. And you're probably going to have to beat Texas A&M twice to get out of this regional. But you need to start off on the right foot, because you don't want to fall behind and be clawing your way out of a deficit any sooner than you have to. And I think that's part of it. I think also the reality is Texas A&M is going to be an intimidating environment. And it was interesting because Elena Escobar, the star pitcher for Liberty, he's battling an Achilles injury. She seems like she's going to be fine. All indications are she should, and there could be setbacks on this, so things could change between now and a couple days from now. But she should be good to go when Liberty gets ready to battle Marist later this week. But preparation, I think if anything, the other reason why for Dr. Dodd Richardson you don't panic, you let your team figure these problems out, is that's why you play a challenging non-conference schedule. You played Virginia Tech twice, even though you lost. You played Virginia at home and away. You played schools like Alabama. You've been in these type of environments. You've logged some wins. You've had some losses. But overall, you're not intimidated by that. And this is a long-held scheduling philosophy for Dr. Dot Richardson. And over the years, if you look at their non-conference slate, they're not winning all these games. I still think, being a neutral observer here, there's a gap between Liberty and a lot of the high-end teams. But not being intimidated by it, at least understanding and hitting those walls, you can understand all the little things you have to continue to fine-tune to have a chance to beat them, and that's where you gain that valuable experience. And for a lot of these players on the team for Liberty this year, including Elena Escobar, and she said this earlier today, but last year was an example. They went to Oklahoma and played the Sooners. They played Alabama this year. They played in these tough environments, which is why, again, they are not the favorite. They should not be the favorite against Texas A&M. If they get out of that regional, it will, by the sportsbook definition of the rule, it will be an upset and a surprise. But they at least won't be intimidated, you wouldn't think, because they have a number of veterans who've been there before.
I think the game that actually prepared us the most was last year when we went to Oklahoma. There were thousands of screaming fans that were so loud that you couldn't even hear each other talking on the field. And I think that College Station is going to be a lot similar to that environment. So I think that game is what prepared us the most. And for the new girls, playing Alabama was also like a really loud and exciting and fast-paced experience. So I think that will help them prepare for this game also.
Elena Escobar is obviously more well-versed than anyone else, and you want your pitcher to be, you need players that have gone through that before, and so much in softball in particular can be controlled by one pitcher. Rustburg and now UVA have figured that out with Eden Bingham, to a greater extent, JF and Virginia Tech with Emma Lemley. But we've seen this so often. When you have one dominant pitcher, it can change so much of the complexion of a softball game. We could go on and on about great pitchers, but for Liberty, you've at least got that, and it gives you an opportunity. They're going to need other things to go their way. They're going to need breaks to go their way. We know all about that. I still think if I'm putting my money on it, I'm going Texas A&M to get out of this regional. They're a top 3 team in the country by every metric and number 1 by the polls. So, this is a team where Liberty's in an uphill battle. But I don't think they get out, but I don't think they're embarrassed and overly intimidated either, because they're prepared to fight from what they've endured so far this year. They've got the experience. Speaking of being prepared to fight and having the experience to fight for you, Trost Law, they've got that. They've been fighting for their constituents and clients for over 4 decades, since 1982. So if you've been hurt in a car accident, if you're dealing with hassles for the insurance companies, whether it's medical malpractice or auto accidents, that's where Trost Law can help. They've been helping victims in our area fight to protect their rights since 1982, for over 4 decades. They will bring that fight and the attention to detail to make sure your case is handled professionally and correctly. Meanwhile, speaking of professional, that's debatable to start the Fast Five at 5-ish.
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kinda ish. Let's start with number 5.
Well, the Dallas Mavericks did it last night. They won the NBA draft lottery. It is fueling all the conspiracy theories that you heard Ty and Trey go into great depth in the morning warm-up today.
I thought it was fake the whole time. I thought that was fake last night. And I woke up in the middle of the night. I was like, okay, this is actually really true.
So to get my usher on in the fast lane, I come back in from wrapping up our obligations here at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Get changed, ready for a great meal. And my wife, I'm blessed, she's prepared for it. We're on a real health kick in our house, which is awesome, even more so than we normally are. And so she's preparing meals. It's awesome. I'm a fan of the approach, and we're tag teaming this thing together. But I just come in with the top 4 picks remaining. So I looked at the teams and I'm like, oh my gosh, really? Dallas, San Antonio, who needs all the ammo to just continue to build in to acquire a certain Greek superstar from like directly north of them, the other end of the Midwest. Philadelphia, I knew it wasn't going to happen as a Sixers fan. Again, having no optimism they will get the number 1 pick, as if they've done great things when they've had the number 1 pick. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Markelle Fultz over Jason Tatum. More on that in a moment. And then the Charlotte Hornets, who I knew they were not going to get it. But Charlotte, Washington, Utah, I knew going into the draft they were not going to get the top pick. And yet the Dallas Mavericks are the ones who get it. Do I think the NBA draft is always rigged? No. But do I think it opens itself up for skepticism? Yes. And I get the idea of we don't want to weight the bad teams, But Lake Lewis hit the nail on the head earlier today. And I know he's an NFL insider for sportsjourney.com and joins Trey every Tuesday morning and talks the NFL. But I thought his point about the NBA was the biggest. At some point, how are you going to continue to sell hope to these moribund franchises? Not that the NBA wants Washington or Charlotte or Utah or other teams to actually be able to win the draft lottery, especially when there are big prizes, good prizes at the end of the draft lottery, like Dallas will get with Cooper Flagg. But, if you're the fan of those type of teams, what's the point in even paying attention, knowing that you're probably going to stink, and even when you stink, you're not going to get rewarded with the chance to get better?
Yeah, I mean, it don't make no sense. I'm like, of all teams, you trade Luka, then you return Cooper Flagg. Like, you really can't make that up.
Meanwhile, speaking of the NBA,
Number 4.
I love the lineup NBC's bringing for their NBA coverage. Vince Carter, former North Carolina star, who, for my money, watching as a college basketball fan growing up in the late 90s and early 2000s, I thought he was one of the most athletically gifted players. Everyone remembers him with the Raptors and the dunk contest and dunking with his, basically his forearm straight to the elbow through the goal. Like, he killed the slam dunk contest in terms of anyone being able to top what he did from an NBA player. I know Mac McClung's had great dunks, but the guy's a G League player. I know, with all due respect to our friends over in Gate City, Virginia. But you add that to Michael Jordan. And again, Trey from the Morning Warm-Up, I think, was spot on with this, that I think NBC, the big thing they want is Michael for his player sit-down interviews with other players. And the Michael LeBron one is going to be the one that's going to be must-watch TV. I can see this coming. And, I mean, if I'm the NBA, I know ESPN, ABC are their biggest rights partner. But if you can have NBC providing this type of secondary, ancillary coverage, quite the secondary coverage.
Do you think MJ really will do it, though?
I think he'll do some, yeah. I mean, I think ultimately he'll do it. And there's a competitive side, I think, to Michael Jordan where he and LeBron James will be more amicable. Plus, I think, I don't know if LeBron wants to go on a full farewell tour, but I think he knows he's entering the end of his career, and it'll give him a chance to kind of bridge the gap. LeBron, for as much criticism as I give him, I think he's got a lot of healthy respect for the game. And while he doesn't necessarily want to bring that up as a competitor, I think it's the type of thing that he's willing to embrace, especially knowing that the R word for him, retirement, is on the horizon. Speaking of sports media news,
Number 3.
Prime Video has said it is nearly sold out of its advertising inventory for its 5 NASCAR Cup Series races and appears to hint that it will run a double box format instead of full screen commercials. This, according to Molly Kaelane of Sports Business Journal. I love it. Like, as a NASCAR fan and a sports observer, I get fans. Let me rephrase it. Maybe I'm too close to the sun as somebody who sells advertising for the Virginia Talk Radio Network. But you got to have advertising in some capacity. Like, these networks aren't paying billions with a B, but billions of
dollar bills, y'all,
to broadcast these games, to not recoup that investment on ad inventory. I get a lot of sports fans just cannot wrap their mind around that concept. Like, it is literally exploding heads for them. But everything we do here and everything everyone else does is for the benefit of our partners. Like, that's why we all exist. And I get fans get upset by this, but if you can find a way to appease your partners while keeping the action going, to me, it's the best of both worlds. It's not quite as ridiculous as when people complain about the split screen because they're still airing the basketball game, but our friends at WSET, Will Stafford, or Matt Ferguson, our great chief meteorologist, or our friends at WDBJ, that those people, when they have to split the screen for sporting events and then they interject with like tornado warnings and people are complaining that they're getting tornado warning updates, why would you want to save my life? I just want to watch the game. Really? I mean, okay, if that's your last wish, to each his or her own, but I like to think we've got better taste than that. Really? Split screens in NASCAR, it's the same concept. It is much better and much more worthwhile. Meanwhile, on to
Number 2.
Major League Baseball, posthumously removing Pete Rose and other deceased players, 16 additional players outside of Pete Rose, from the permanently ineligible list today. It is a, quote, extraordinary twist, end quote, according to The Athletic, on this saga that's gone on for multiple decades. Trey, who has the Foul Ball Area podcast and is more of a baseball guy, will probably go in greater depth to this tomorrow in the morning warm-up from 7 to 8 a.m. But here's my just general comparison to this. This is like the NCAA vacating victories. Like, it's kind of the same scale. Whatever you're doing really is having no impact on the people that initially were involved in the situation. In the NCAA, it's vacating victories, and you're punishing the next group of people who had nothing to do with the violations at the school. Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, you're allowing Pete Rose and other posthumous players to go in, but well after they pass, so they'll never actually be able to experience the moment themselves. I mean, really? Like, okay, we're righting the wrong. I just want to know how long they were thinking this up and why it took so long, although I highly, highly doubt we will ever get a clear answer on this one. Meanwhile,
Number 1.
the NFL has announced their international game schedule. I'm sure Trey will have a full rundown tomorrow. The note on this from a big picture level is pretty much all the teams that are competing in international games this year are AFC teams. The reason being, AFC this year is the conference that has 9 home games and 8 away games, because that extra interconference game, the team that has the most home games rotates each year. So pretty much all these international games, from Sao Paulo, Brazil, to all the way through the Washington Commanders won November 16th against Miami, at Miami, said in air quotes, November 16th in Madrid, that game, it's taking away a home game, so it's going to be 8 home, 8 away, and 1 on what's basically a neutral site from AFC teams. Look, Philly was part of this last year. Everybody's going to have to sacrifice. This is just the value of revenue sharing in the NFL. By and large, they're going to be an equal opportunity taker-awayer for different teams. And, I mean, look, if I'm the Commanders, I'd rather sacrifice an away game against Miami by going to Spain in mid-November. And the other thing is, that might be having to go to Miami early in the year when it's sweltering hot and humid, and it saves you from that type of trip early on during the season. By the way, a shout out to Lake Lewis, who was your guest with Utah and Trey on the morning warm-up. He had called this like back in February that Washington was going to get this international game in Madrid. We find out when it is today, but kudos to Lake Lewis for being way ahead of everybody else and on that.
Yeah, shout out to Lake Lewis. He do be having all the insights and he be spot on with the nuggets and everything.
Yes, he most definitely is. Meanwhile, when we return in the fast lane, we will pivot off of that to the University of Lynchburg. Their baseball team, they are back in the regionals and hosting once again. We'll get kind of an overview on the Lynchburg Hornets. We weren't going to go full strength, but Virginia Tech's baseball game against Marshall today canceled. It will not be made up because it's a non-conference game. So their last games of the regular season will take on Virginia in Blacksburg starting at 5:30 p.m., interjecting the PGA Championship this Thursday on the VTRN Sports app. Virginia's game, by the way, today also canceled and will also not be made up. So the Hoos and Hokies will square off Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to wrap up the regular season right here on VTRN Sports. So that's why we'll get a chance to go a little longer on the University of Lynchburg with Ed Smith, our next guest here in the Fast Lane, Director of Sports Performance and Enhancement, basically strength and conditioning and full-service athletic health and services. Ed Smith will probably correct me and put me in my place, but we'll get to him next here in the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app.
Get more at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier used car dealer serving Southwest Virginia and surrounding areas for over 50 years. With more selection, more value, and more finance options. Plus, your trade is worth more. Get the best selection with more Hondas, more Hyundais, all your favorite makes and models. Over 900 used vehicles in stock now. That's way more than any other dealer in the area. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume all in one location on the Motor Mile. The Used Car Superstore is your one stop for cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. Plus, Sheeler owns the finance company. Getting approved for credit is easy on the Motor Mile with financing options for every budget. We finance your future, not your past. You're a valued customer and not just a number on the Motor Mile. Get more with straightforward pricing and more inventory arriving daily. Over 900 vehicles on the lot ready to choose from. The Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Get your mom flowers for Mother's Day, and they last maybe a week. Get your mom something from Anderson's Country Market 2 in Madison Heights, and it can last days, weeks, months, or longer. They've got annuals, perennials, and shrubs. Anderson's Country Market 2 also sell hanging baskets. They've even got fun things like Adoratio Farms goat milk products like soap and lotion, and Flamin' Arrow candles and car diffusers. Get your mom a gift that lasts more than a couple days. Go to Anderson's Country Market 2 on the northern tip of Business 29 in Madison Heights towards Monroe.
It's natural to wonder why you should consult a legal advocate after a serious auto accident. The reason is personal injury cases are complex. Hi, I'm Randy Trost with Trost Law. Filing a claim isn't just about filling out a form and waiting for a check in the mail. Most accident resolutions require intricate knowledge of Virginia's personal injury laws and experience working with insurance companies. That's where Trost Law will help. Call us at 777-HURT and visit trostlaw.com so we can do the work to obtain the best result for you.
Your home is more than just walls and windows. It's where life happens. And at Right Choice Construction, we get that. We're not just builders. We're fathers, mothers, neighbors, just like you. And every nail and every beam reflects our commitment to creating a place you're proud to live in. With Right Choice Construction, you're choosing a team that's been perfecting the art of building for years. So build with us, build with experience, build with quality, build with Right Choice.
Welcome to the Villas at Oakwood. Our stunning community offers spacious, modern, wheelchair-accessible villas with top-of-the-line amenities. Enjoy views from the Peaks of Otter from your patio home. Connect with neighbors at our exclusive clubhouse. Discover your dream home today. Experience the maintenance-free lifestyle that you deserve. Visit us behind the Bedford Memorial Hospital, online at thevillasatoakwood.com, or just contact Robin Lee Sage at 434-238-4477.
Hi, I'm Chuck from Aquatrack Adventures in Salem. The Virginia Talk Radio Network and InsaneRadioDeals.com have helped our company grow by sharing our company's message throughout Central and Southside Virginia. The gift cards and experiences sold on InsaneRadioDeals.com have brought us many new customers. If you're a business that wants to grow with a message that resonates and gets results, I highly recommend InsaneRadioDeals.com and the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Simply put, it works.
You want your truck to look awesome on the road and handle all the cool things you do off-road. Line-X of Lynchburg has you covered. Of course, they've got the #1 bed liner on the market, but they're also your full-service truck and off-road accessory shop featuring lift kits, wheels, steps, undercoating, tonneau covers, and more. And because Line-X of Lynchburg is a real truck dealer, you can trust them to give your truck or SUV the style you want and the accessories it needs. Go see Grant at Line-X of Lynchburg, 1313 Thomas Jefferson Road in Forest.
Virginia's source for sports. VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
So it's interesting that we get ready to welcome in Ed Smith, the Assistant Athletic Director for Sports Performance at the University of Lynchburg here in the Fast Lane. The news just broke. Not really a shock to anybody. I know they, wanted to wait on the diagnosis of Jason Tatum, but most people that I've heard who have dealt with Achilles tendon injuries, I'm blessed to say I'm not in that category. You never know if it'll happen, but prayerfully it will not for me or people that I know. But most people that have been down that road before can kind of identify when it happens to other people. And, I think I've at least seen it enough to know when it happens to someone else. But, it's more waiting for the swelling to go down. Then you get the MRI and it just kind of confirms what everyone kind of knew. And when Jason Tatum's injury happened yesterday and he popped the Achilles, I think everyone kind of knew that was going to be the outcome. I know there's no official timetable for his return that's been provided, but by all accounts, he's probably out the majority, if not all, of next season. And I would include the postseason in that for the Boston Celtics if they in fact reach that particular timeline, which, it stinks. But it kind of begs this question. There's only so much I think you can do. Inevitably, you probably heard this all the time playing football for Heritage and for Virginia Union tie. Injuries are part of the game, and they're going to be a reality, even with things that you can do to mitigate the risk for that.
Yeah, especially losing one of your star players, and they've been banged up all season and stuff, so it just really hurts them, especially in the playoff. Now you're down 3-1. It's really probably took their souls right there, and now it's like they're gonna be lost cause without their star player, Jason Tatum. They still got Jaylen Brown, but he's banged up really bad too. You can tell from the knee.
Yeah, and I think the other thing people often I don't think realize is last year they won the NBA championship. I know there's load management now like there didn't used to be, and I think it was probably got its double-edged sides to it. But the flip side is when you make continuous deep runs in postseason play year after year after year, it's hard for the body to have time to recover. They talk about in football, the Super Bowl hangover effect and how difficult it is to sustain that year after year, not to mention you're picking later in the draft in the NFL and even the NBA. So it's different in the NBA because you can acquire talent through other ways. Free agency is much bigger, I think. But in the NFL, it's so draft heavy that inevitably that only compounds the challenges of it. But you're talking about the injuries, the risk for it, and what you can reasonably do to maybe not prevent it, but to reduce the risk of those things happening, which we'll go with a bigger holistic overview as we welcome in Ed Smith, the Assistant Athletic Director for Sports Performance at the University of Lynchburg. Ed, I'm sure technology's improved, sports science has improved. I know you're on top of things from being in this business for over a decade now with strength and conditioning. But how much of your job at the University of Lynchburg is, it's not injury prevention because it's going to happen, but risk prevention so that there's less likely it's going to happen and athletes are better prepared to withstand the rigors of playing their sports?
Oh, thanks for having me on. But that's exactly that's what it all boils down to in my profession. Strength conditioning, we are general physical preparation specialists. So with that being said, we're never going to limit injuries, but we're going to try to limit the opportunity for injuries to happen. And so, you hate to hear the Achilles injury, but and torn, and that, like you said, it's going to put him back for a good little piece. But I think, like you said, the long run last year might have been what looks back to get him this year.
This is not something that I would say applies to the NBA, because these professional leagues, a lot of their sports science departments are they're obviously well funded. They treat it like a business because it is. But for you at the University of Lynchburg, Ed, and we're chatting with Ed Smith, the Assistant Athletic Director for Sports Performance, how much have you been able to learn things that may work for one particular sport but can be transferable to other sports to help athletes be able to not only perform well, but know when to get their bodies ready to peak when it matters most later in the seasons?
Well, I've been very fortunate here at the University of Lynchburg for the last 10 years to work with pretty much all of our sports. And you definitely learn from one sport to the other. As one sport makes a longer run or a shorter run or has some success one year to the next, you definitely pull bits and pieces from your strength conditioning department. Sitting down with the athletic training staff, I was very fortunate. In my career as an undergraduate, I was an athletic training undergraduate. So I have that kind of in my back pocket to at least be able to speak the same languages back to our athletic training staff. Caroline Seiler and her group do a fantastic job. And we just try to evaluate that stuff as we get to the end of the year, and then try to re-up and make sure we're not making the same mistakes the next year.
We brought you on to talk baseball, and we'll do that eventually because that's the one that we're hoping, fingers crossed, that there will be multiple opportunities to talk about baseball series for the University of Lynchburg, including later this week when they begin their NCAA Division III regional against Marymount. But looking at the other sports landscape for the University of Lynchburg, we had this discussion a week or so ago after Lynchburg and Washington and Lee, and they played 2 one-goal games this year. Lynchburg got it in the regular season, WNL in overtime in the ODAC championship. But are we at the point now where ODAC lacrosse, I know it may not be on par in terms of depth and reputation and history with a lot of the bigger Northeastern conferences, but that this is now consistently proven to be a multi-bid league in men's lacrosse, and Lynchburg and WNL and some others have proven that out.
Yeah, I think, the NCAA this year made the change to the NPI metrics to get into the national tournament. And I think that bodes well for all of our teams in our conference. We can have a good if we can add on to that with our out-of-conference schedule and win some games with some of those Northeast teams that are having tons of success. That too, I think it's definitely a 2-bid league, but with the opportunity of some of these other teams to see that you just got to know the metrics and play the game with the metrics, and you can still get in even with a few losses to really good teams.
Ed Smith, the Assistant Athletic Director for Sports Performance at the University of Lynchburg. He sees all these sports at the University of Lynchburg and is well-versed since he helps train them year-round. He probably knows these teams inside and out better than anybody. We mentioned men's lacrosse. The one thing I guess you would brush back is your job at the point now where for a program like that, it seems like they're in a really, really strong spot year in and year out with Coach Kadelka and what he's been able to do. Is it minor tweaks and improvements in what you can do with them, or is it still at the beginning of every year building it, breaking it down and building it back up so that they can get to the point where they continue to make these NCAA tournaments and have the opportunity to win games as well?
Yeah, I think if you really look at it, every team is a new team. Whether you are very heavy in upperclassmen or younger classmen, we really look at it as a whole new thing. So we will sit down with the coaching staffs and really kind of map out where we want the season to go, where we see this current team. Then do an initial evaluation when everybody is on campus there in August. Kind of take them through that fall semester, really training them, getting them in the mindset. That being a major part of successes. We know there's going to be ups and downs in the season, and then just getting them to buy into the process of their time here. So just really meet them where they're at and continue to grow from that process.
When you started working with the University of Lynchburg, we've seen the U of L, and they made the national championship game a few years ago, and they continue to make these tournaments. Washington and Lee, they've elevated. We touched on the ODAC. Christopher Newport here in Virginia, they're a top 5 team now consistently, and they were the team that knocked the Hornets out a couple of days ago, 22-10. What have you noticed about just the fact that lacrosse, which is it's a Northeast sport traditionally, seems to really have matriculated its way down here into Virginia and has a pretty strong foothold as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the game is ever growing. I've been very fortunate to be a part of the growth process within the strength conditioning side. I've actually been an author on some of the books on the lacrosse side. But, yeah, definitely the game has grown, and I think will continue to grow. If you look down in the Atlanta area and things of that nature, tons of lacrosse. So I think it's only getting started.
We'll shift over from lacrosse to track and field. What was it like seeing the 1-2-3 finish and the 3 school records falling the other day about a week and a half ago?
Oh, it's definitely been a buzz on campus. Those 3 guys are 3 older guys that have worked their tail off. Jake Reed and his staff on the distance side, along with Coach Sprecher, have really kind of put their money on those 3 guys to continue to grow the department and the track and field side. And it was just an amazing event. I know you can see videos and the people going crazy down on track level. I think that's always a cool experience is, you don't think about it. Sometimes you see that from the stand level, but some of those videos, literally those guys running 1 or 2 lanes past the camera was definitely an electric event.
Yeah, I mean, the reaction as well on campus to see something like that. I mean, look, as a runner, it makes my heart flutter to see that people are embracing running to that particular degree. But, how have you noticed that when you have seen even the campus? We've seen the evolution with men's soccer, women's soccer, lacrosse as well, baseball, and we'll get to them in a moment again as we're chatting with Ed Smith, the assistant athletic director for sports performance at the University of Lynchburg. But people don't think of track and cross country as exciting, yet what Jake Reed's done to be able to breathe that type of life seems like it's kind of carried over to the entire campus.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely we've been very fortunate and kind of spoiled, if you may, with all the successes of all the teams, but it's definitely a thing that you see on our campus, especially I talk to them in the weight room when they come. Nobody wants to be the team that didn't win a championship or didn't host trophies, or our big thing on campus is ringing the bell for championships. Every team wants to be included in that process. We just had our sports awards the other night, last Monday, and the amount of success that we had to go on and get the athletes up on stage and recognize them is just unbelievable. And it's very humbling to be a part of it.
I mean, it's really cool to see it from the distance. Those guys are way ahead of anything that I could ever hope to attain as a runner, to have 3 of them shatter the 4-minute mile mark. And that does translate over to speed for longer distances. And the University of Lynchburg, they've proven that. Again, we'll have more time to get into what Coach Jake Reed has done with that particular program, but we brought you on to talk baseball. This is their 3rd consecutive ODAC championship, and they've done it through coaching changes, through the success they've had. Obviously, the national championship a couple of years ago, last year making it back to the College World Series. You've seen this now through different coaches and different iterations. What role have you personally played, Ed, in working with different coaching staffs, but to keep a lot of this core of baseball players together and being able to build off of seasons where they can have this level of success?
Well, I think it's just continuing to have the athletes understand the expectation now. The expectation is to go make a run at the ODAC, but then to now make a run in the national tournament. This is actually going to be the first year that I've been here that we've been able to host a regional. We've hosted super regionals here before, but we're going to host a regional on campus. It's a big part of what we like to do to give our athletes the experience of that NCAA experience, really put something together good for them. But my main role in all of this is to just be the constant in the room of the weight room. Very fortunate that Travis Beasley was on staff and has been on staff since the start of this transition over to the new program. So even with Lucas Jones leaving, Travis Beasley was able to step right in. And kind of last year, even Lucas Jones came back on as an assistant. And then now this has been Travis Beasley without Lucas Jones and the whole staff. I mean, it's a part of what we do now in Lynchburg baseball, and it's very fun to be a part of the program.
Yeah, I mean, it's real neat to see the growth that this baseball program has had over the handful of years from Coach Jones to Coach Beasley and multiple staffs and different iterations of it. Hosting a regional, which is this coming Friday, May 16th, 1:30 p.m. is when that will take place. The Lynchburg Hornets debut against Marymount. You mentioned super regionals, and this program has hosted that before. Does it say something more, though, about what they've done cumulatively over the regular season? Super regional, some of that's about the way the draw breaks and who your opponent is and what happens in other regionals to host or in other regionals, but to actually host a regional, as much as anything, that seems to say that this is a top 15, top 25 caliber program throughout the course of the season.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think we have fallen outside of that top 15, top 10, really, the whole season, and really just planted our flag, if you may, and said, we're here, we're back. And we definitely want to make not just the run here at the regional, then go on to the super regional, hopefully bring them back to Lynchburg with the super regional, and continue to make that run and head to Ohio for the World Series and plant our flag in Ohio as well.
It starts this Friday, May 16th, actually at 10 a.m. Emory versus Maryville, then Lynchburg versus Marymount. It's double elimination, similar to the NCAA Division I baseball regionals or softball, except this is Division III, similar structure. It goes through this coming Sunday, weather permitting, which, Ed, we are going to keep our fingers crossed that this rain and inclement weather that's been here today gets out of the way so that the fans can actually enjoy some good, solid baseball with great weather this weekend at Lynchburg.
Absolutely. If anybody in town wants something to do this weekend, it'll be a great environment, some great baseball, 3 other great teams that have earned the right to be in the regional, and we look forward to having you on campus and enjoying the great baseball that is here in Lynchburg.
We're excited for it as well. Ed Smith, the Assistant Athletic Director for Sports Performance at the University of Lynchburg, giving us an overview today in the Fast Lane. Ed, thank you for your time, and look, again, we got to get our usher on here in the Fast Lane, but you chimed in at Fast Lane Ed Lane. I believe it was on Instagram. We're talking NASCAR and the creme de la creme rising in NASCAR. We'll get into the weeds on that in the next segment. But because you've been so good, including going all over Lynchburg on a spontaneous level today, what was your take on what we've seen through the first third of the NASCAR season with the top organizations rising, and in particular, Hendrick Motorsports out of that group?
I love NASCAR. I am a huge Kyle Larson fan. I love that the creme de la creme is coming to the top. The cream's rising to the top. That's how it shakes out. Hendrick Motorsports has been around NASCAR and dominated NASCAR, and I think they're here to stay for a long time.
Well, I mean, they've been here for quite a while, and look, this is an organization that is at the top of NASCAR, and I mean, give them time; they'll figure it out. You know, in iteration, it seems like they prove they can do that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but there's don't count out the Penske's and don't count out everybody else. They're going to find their way as well. It's interesting how the circle keeps rolling around with these great teams. And they got the most money.
And that is a great tease and a great tee up for us in the Fast Lane next. Ed, thank you for your time as always. We look forward to some great baseball over at the U of L this coming weekend. Lynchburg, not Louisville, of course. And we appreciate your time here in the Fast Lane.
I appreciate having me on. Look forward to keeping up with you guys as we continue.
Indeed. Always a pleasure to chat with Ed Smith, Assistant Athletic Director for Sports Performance at the University of Lynchburg, and the run that they've had in all these sports now. I mean, to be that consistently good at that many sports, fall, we don't give it as much attention. And I mean, look, let's keep it real in the Fast Lane. And again, I mean, football is going to take over in the fall. And basketball, to a large degree, takes over. I say this often. I'm going to beat a dead horse here. It's probably becoming cliche to our listeners. But the best way to get a lot of the attention, and the sports that are going to get the most attention, are going to be the spring sports out of all the non-football and basketball, because there's not that level of competition. And I get it. There's some areas in the country where, SEC, for example, where it's, they want to hear more spring football news. They keep up with recruiting. Why you keep up with high school recruiting now when half these guys go to the transfer portal is beyond me. But hey, or at least wait until it settles down in another couple of weeks and you have firm rosters in place in college football.
Well, you got to think about it. They got the transfer portal in the winter. Then now they got a transfer portal like in the middle of spring. Then after the spring ball situation, that's the transfer portal. So it's just hitting so many times.
Our listeners and our viewers at Fast Lane Ed Lane on the socials can see this. I'm just rolling my eyes. Make it one transfer portal window. Like, make it 1 at the end of the season. And it starts at the end of the season, and you got like 2 weeks to get this thing rectified and figure out and go to your next destination. Like, if I can think of this, I know it might change the concept of student athletes. I'm not talking about the University of Lynchburg and ODAC student athletes. Like, those are legitimate student athletes. And there are ones at Division I where they actually care about the student experience. But there are a sector of them where it literally is just a part-time job that's well paid, and they're moving around from place to place. And if you can get the bag and you go back to school and get your degree later and you're smart with it, God bless you. I don't fault anybody for having a smart plan on how to collect as much as you possibly can in this short window. But as a fan, it just makes it more complex than it really needs to be. But I will say this. The Olympic sports get a lot of the shine this time of year because there's not that same level of direct game competition that you're finding in other sports. And I know I say it a lot, but it's worth repeating because I think there's a lot of truth to that. Meanwhile, speaking of truth and the creme de la creme rising in NASCAR, we'll pay off that tease when we return and maybe a little bit of your feedback as well. This is the Fast Lane on the VTR and Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTR and Sports.
Mark Dalton here with the Terry Auto Group. If you don't love your car, then you're simply just driving the wrong one. At Terry Volkswagen, Terry Subaru, Terry Auto Outlet, and the Terry Clearance Center, we've got the perfect new or used car for you. We make your car buying experience easy. Need help with imperfect credit? No problem. Our team works hard to get you approved and back on the road. Because when you shop at Terry, you drive away happy. Visit us at any of our 4 locations or online at terryautogroup.com. Terry Auto Group. You'll love our cars.
Do you know what a cold climate heat pump is? They're a new generation of heat pumps from Tara Lee Mosley that provide substantially more heat than traditional heat pumps, even when it's 5 degrees outside. This means your electrical auxiliary heat runs less, saving you big time on your electric bill. And with the recent spikes in electric utility rates, that's crucial. Plus, these new heat pumps qualify you for a $2,000 federal tax credit. Contact Tara Lee Mosley for more info on the new cold climate heat pumps.
Car insurance rates are rising rapidly. That's no secret. It's because the cost of medical care for those who are injured and the repair and replacement cost of damaged vehicles is skyrocketing. But what can you do about it? Hi, this is Judd Gardner with Gardner Insurance Solutions in Lynchburg. We've been helping Central Virginia drivers purchase the coverage they need at affordable prices since 1993. Talk with us before you pay again. We represent numerous companies and have many cost-saving strategies. Gardner Insurance Solutions, 434-316-5433.
We're here with Colt from We Fix Stupid Computers. Colt, to go along with your residential or individual walk-in services that you offer, you also do a lot of business IT support. How about you discuss that, and what specifically do you do to help businesses in the area?
We see a lot of that. Small to medium-sized businesses, they still have their IT projects. They still need resources to help them within their office and for remote users. And so we'll step in and fill in the gap where we do a lot of projects for them, help them manage their resources, their budgets, and get their technology under control.
Colt, how can these people reach out to you to assess their IT needs?
Call us. Our number is 434-525-8590. Our website, wefixstupidcomputers.com. We're on Facebook. And our office is here locally, 14690 Forest Road, right next to Scott's Cabinet on 221.
Join the Lynchburg Hillcats at Bank of the James Stadium this summer for any of your favorite nightly promotions. New this year are Senior Sluggers Tuesdays, where members of the Silver Sluggers Club get in free, and College Pride Night, where those wearing college apparel receive a discounted ticket on Wednesdays. As always, we'll have Thirsty Thursdays and giveaways and fireworks on the weekend, and free admission for Kids Club members on Sunday. Get your tickets today at lynchburg-hillcats.com.
Every year, millions of pets go missing, leaving families heartbroken. If you lose or find a pet, Love Lost is here to help. Love Lost is a free, easy-to-use database utilizing photo matching technology to search participating shelter partners and social platforms to bring pets home. Simply upload a photo to report a lost or found pet to the largest free lost and found database, or pre-register your pet today so you're ready if the unthinkable happens. With over 100,000 reunions and counting, Love Lost unites communities through technology to make a difference. Let's unite to reunite, because every pet deserves a lifetime of love. Visit lovelost.org and register today.
At InsaneRadioDeals.com, we don't care if you have $2, $30, or no dolls. We're just capitalizing on the latest opportunity to help you save money. Now through the end of May, enter the promo code DOLL at checkout for 30% off the list price of every item. That includes the Yard on 5th Street gift certificates, Ballard Brewing and Danville gift cards, 801 Raw Bar gift certificates, JD's Cafe gift certificates, and Anderson's Country Market 2 gift certificates. So now through the end of May, enter the promo code DOLL at checkout at InsaneRadioDeals.com for 30% off the list price of every item. So it's appropriate on this InsaneRadioDeals.com fast take that comes your way from Thomas Jefferson's Poplar Forest that Virginia Cavalier fans, and heck, even Liberty and Virginia Tech fans, can all take a lesson for all sports from the NCAA tournament selection process for softball, because the SEC gets the benefit of the doubt, not the Virginia area schools. Liberty and Virginia were kind of fringe cases to host a regional. Virginia Tech had a very compelling case, but all get shipped to SEC schools, showing a lesson across the board.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
So the cream has risen to the top in NASCAR, and I think we've clearly seen that over the first third of the NASCAR season. And part of the reason why I don't think this is an overstatement is just because we've had multiple seasons now under the current iteration of the car. And historically, we're at the next-gen car now. There have been other versions. Don't need to get too much into the weeds on that, although we're going to get into the weeds in just a second. But inevitably, here's the simple thing. You give teams that have more
dollar bills, y'all.
more time to figure things out, and you don't change the other variables, they're going to have more resources to find the particular edges when it comes to that, which is why it is time for us to delve deeper and explain, to an extent, as we get into the weeds.
The haters say we get into the weeds. They may even say we get into the weed.
Smoke weed every day.
Nah, we love getting into the weeds to discuss some cool sports details here in the Fast Lane.
So at this point, though, every race this year has basically been won by one of the big three organizations. I'll say basically because Josh Berry and Wood Brothers Racing got a victory earlier this year, and they're effectively an offshoot of Penske. So Penske, Ford, Joe Gibbs, Toyota. I'll put 2311, their satellite organization, in that because Denny Hamlin drives for Gibbs, but he has his own team with Michael Jordan, and they're well endowed, hence multi-billionaire Michael Jordan being involved. And then Hendrick Motorsports. That's essentially right now what Penske's got 4 if you count Wood Brothers. So you're at 4 there. You're at 4 more, which gets you to 8 with Hendrick Motorsports. And then you got 6 when you count the 4 with Joe Gibbs and the 2 with 2311 Racing. That's 14 of presumably the 16 playoff spots with that. Now, Ross Chastain's been good. Kyle Busch, I think they're capable of winning races independently on their own for lesser funded teams and organizations. But the point being is the cream is starting to rise to the top. And here's the crazy thing. I don't think we even saw the best of what Hendrick Motorsports could have offered this past weekend. Chase Elliott gets a tire situation pop up. He wrecks out of the race. Obviously, Kyle Larson dominated and got the victory. But William Byron, he had a tire situation as well in this race. And then Alex Bowman, who candidly said to frontstretch.com after the race that it could have been better than the 5th place he had when he had to rally to get back to 5th.
Yeah, we were really fast until we got damaged, and then just got really loose in and really tight in the center. Kind of did everything quite a bit worse after we got the wall. So, yeah, it just sucks that we didn't capitalize on how good it was. It's hard to say. It's hard to sit here and be like, we would have won the race, but we worked hard pretty good, and we ran 5th, so we would have been better than that. But that's part of racing. These next-gen restarts get pretty crazy. Proud of everybody on this Ally 48 team moving really fast.
That was Alex Bowman speaking with frontstretch.com after the race about the 5th place finish that could have been better, which I agree. I mean, this is a guy that really was a top 3 caliber car. William Byron had that kind of speed. Chase Elliott did as well. Like, they easily could have been a 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think it'll happen at some point this year. It's not going to happen every weekend for a couple of reasons. One is the fact that there's just all it takes is somebody to have something go wrong during the course of the day. And all these teams have had that. As great as Kyle Larson is, when they're on and dominant, they're the best in NASCAR. But we've seen off races, including they've only won one championship, often in the playoffs in prior years. But the key ingredient they have to get to this point is just raw speed as an organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the best we've been, right? Like the point standings don't show it, and we haven't won. And the last month finishes certainly don't show it. But like for me, going to the racetrack, the only place that we haven't been fast was Darlington, and we were going to run top 10 until I smoked the fence. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're really strong right now on the 48 side of things. I think the whole company is working really well together. It's a really good group, right? It's hard to get all four. I know the fans think all four should be perfect every week, but it's hard, man. It is really hard to get all four on the right side of things every week and on any given day. So, yeah, we've at least had the speed.
People have rolled their eyes before, and Alex Bowman said that with frontstretch.com about how, Hendrick and everybody seems to be on the same page in organization. People roll their eyes when you hear that in NASCAR, but there are times where, like when Rusty Wallace was running, it didn't seem to be as amicable. And this is not my thoughts. This is what others like Michael Massey, big Rusty Wallace fan of frontstretch.com, have intimated. That oftentimes those drivers didn't necessarily want to help out their other teammates, whereas at Hendrick, they found a really good mix of drivers that do. And it's kind of the Hendrick way, and you get a bunch of guys in where they're young and coming in, or in Larson's case, had more experience but needed a second chance after the inward slip up on the iRacing incident back in COVID. But it's part of why Hendrick has risen. And Chad Knaus, big picture overview, 7-time Cup-winning crew chief and friend of ours in the fast lane, elaborated on that.
If you take a look at it, we're maturing as a group. Obviously, the crew chiefs are now in their third complete year of working together. Our drivers are maturing, working together. They dive in deep with one another. They lean on each other. The communication at Hendrick Motorsports has always been high, but I don't know that it's ever been as high as what it is right now.
That's Chad Knaus speaking after the Kyle Larson victory at Kansas. And where that makes so much sense is you're talking about getting people on the same page and having a long-term vision. Knaus, 7-time Cup champion crew chief. Jeff Gordon, 4 times in the car. Rick Hendrick has seen multiple championships in different iterations, over 10. You have a long picture, holistic view. And that's part of why, as Chad Knaus mentioned, they've risen.
Obviously, our leadership is just awesome with Mr. H and Gordon and Jeff Andrews. So I think if you take all those things and everybody pushes inward, and, obviously one thing we're not afraid to do is run towards a problem. And we do that, and we try to get them resolved so that these guys can come to the racetrack and execute. And that's the thing that I think I'm probably the most proud of with our race teams is the execution throughout the course of the day. They execute at a very high level. Pit stop cycles, the way they perform on pit stops, the strategies they use, really pretty awesome right now.
And they are. Everything is hitting for Hendrick Motorsports, which is how they've gotten to this point. It's not going to be like that every week. Penske and Gibbs will catch up, but this is part of why Hendrick has been dominant. It's a long-term vision that's starting to pay off. Meanwhile, we're out of here today. VTRN Sports app and, of course, W227BG Timberlake, WVGM AM Lynchburg, WMNA Gretna Danville Southside, now on To Make It Rain with Adam Shine.
On VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.